The night shift at Europa Deep Space Station was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data from deep space, searching for anything unusual. Tonight was different. Tom Miller had been staring at his monitor for 6 hours when the first anomaly appeared. At first, he thought his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. The energy signature was unlike anything he'd seen before, a massive spike in the Kuiper Belt region, far beyond Neptune's orbit. "Hey, Bill," Tom called to his supervisor. "You might want to take a look at this." Bill walked over, coffee cup in hand. As he leaned over Tom's shoulder, his coffee splashed onto the floor. The energy readings were off the charts. "Get the director on the line." Now, within an hour, Director Wilson had called an emergency meeting. The station's main control room was packed with scientists and analysts, all staring at the massive wall screen showing the mysterious readings. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wilson began, her voice steady but tense. "What we're looking at appears to be artificial in nature. The energy signature suggests advanced technology, and it's not moving like any natural phenomenon we've ever observed." The room burst into whispers. Dr. Roberts, the lead physicist, stepped forward. "The pattern is too regular to be natural. We're either looking at the biggest discovery in human history or—" Before he could finish, every screen in the control room flickered. A series of numbers began appearing. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. "The Fibonacci sequence," someone whispered. Tom, still at his station, noticed something else. "Director, they're responding to our deep space pings. They're using mathematics to communicate." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The station's most powerful telescopes were aimed at the source of the signals. What they revealed stunned everyone. A fleet of massive ships, unlike anything humans had ever built. They were crystalline in structure, catching and reflecting the distant sunlight like giant diamonds in space. Using basic mathematical principles as a foundation, the communication team worked frantically to establish a more complex dialogue. The breakthrough came when they managed to convert the mathematical sequences into simple images and then into basic concepts. "They're refugees," Dr. Roberts announced, his voice filled with awe. 300,000 souls aboard those ships. They were trying to use some kind of faster-than-light drive when they hit a gravitational anomaly. Now they're stranded. Director Wilson's face grew grave as more information came through. "Their life support systems are failing. They have 3 months of breathable atmosphere left, at most." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Here was an advanced alien civilization, capable of faster-than-light travel, now dependent on humanity, a species that had barely reached its own moon, for survival. "Get me the UN Secretary General," Wilson ordered, "and contact every major space agency on Earth. We're going to need everyone for this." As the calls went out, Tom found himself staring at a new image on his screen. The aliens had sent a visual of their own people. They were tall, luminescent beings with translucent skin that seemed to glow from within. The staff nicknamed them the Bright Ones. Within 24 hours, space agencies worldwide were mobilizing. The International Space Coalition was formed in record time with a single mission: save the stranded fleet. Dr. Roberts summed up their situation in the first emergency briefing. "We're looking at beings whose technology is centuries ahead of ours. But right now, they need our help. It doesn't matter how advanced they are. When you're broken down on the side of the road, sometimes all you need is a good mechanic." As the briefing ended, Director Wilson looked out at the assembled team. "This is humanity's moment. Not to prove we're the strongest or the most advanced, but to show who we really are. These people need our help, and we're going to give it to them." Outside the station's thick windows, Jupiter loomed large against the black of space. Somewhere out there, beyond Neptune, 300,000 lives were hanging in the balance. Humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps its finest hour, was about to begin. The meeting room aboard the International Space Station was packed. Commander Mark Reeves stood before the holographic display showing the alien fleet, his expression serious. 6 days had passed since first contact, and now Earth's best engineers and scientists were gathered for humanity's most important mission briefing. "The situation is clear," Mark said, pointing to the largest alien vessel. "We have 50 major ships carrying 300,000 refugees. Their main power cores are damaged, and their life support systems are failing." Chief Engineer Kate Brown stepped forward. She was known for fixing the impossible, and now she faced her biggest challenge yet. "The good news is we can reach them. The bad news, their technology is like nothing we've ever seen." The hologram zoomed in on one of the alien ships. Its crystalline structure sparkled even in the recording. "Their ships are grown, not built," Kate explained. "The entire hull is one giant crystal that channels energy, but the gravitational accident cracked these pathways. It's like trying to run electricity through broken wires, except the wires are made of living crystal." The room was silent as the engineers studied the alien technology. Dr. Thompson, the materials expert, raised his hand. "There's another problem. Their crystal technology reacts badly to our metals. Direct contact could shatter their ship's structure." "Time for the numbers," Mark continued. "We have 82 days before their life support fails completely. The first ships will start running out of air in 60 days. Kate brought up another display showing Earth's available resources. "We've got every space agency contributing. NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, ISRO. Everyone's in. We have 30 ships that can reach the fleet, but they're all designed for crews of less than 10 people." The first contact team had been learning to communicate with the bright ones. Dr. Lisa Park, head of communications, shared their findings. "They're peaceful explorers. Their civilization spans several star systems, but they've never encountered a situation like this. Their technology is usually self-repairing." Mark touched the hologram, expanding the view of the damaged fleet. "We're organizing 3 assessment teams. Team 1 will focus on their life support systems. Team 2 will study their power generation. Team 3 will work on their crystal technology." The room buzzed with activity as people were assigned to teams. Kate would lead Team 2, studying the alien power systems. As she reviewed the data, something caught her eye. "Commander," she called out, "look at this energy reading. Their power system. It's not that different from our fusion reactors. It's just more advanced." Dr. Thompson joined her at the display. "She's right. They're using helium-3 fusion, just like our experimental reactors. The principles are the same, but their efficiency is 1,000 times better." This was their first real breakthrough. If the aliens' power systems worked on similar principles to Earth's technology, there might be a way to help them. The assessment teams boarded their ships the next day. As they approached the alien fleet, everyone fell silent. The massive crystal ships stretched for kilometers, their damaged surfaces reflecting the distant sunlight in broken patterns. Kate led her team into the first alien vessel through a specially designed airlock. The bright ones met them, tall, glowing beings that moved with fluid grace. Despite the language barrier, their gratitude was clear. Inside the ship, the damage was worse than they had feared. The crystal corridors were cracked, with energy bleeding out in visible streams of light. Kate's instruments showed power levels dropping steadily. "It's like their whole ship is one giant circuit," she reported back to Mark. "When the gravitational anomaly hit them, it shattered their power distribution system. We can't fix the crystals, but maybe." She paused, an idea forming. "Commander, we might not be able to fix their technology, but we could bypass it. Use our own power systems as a bridge." Mark understood immediately, like jumping a dead battery. "Exactly," Kate replied, "but on a massive scale. We'd need to modify our fusion reactors to interface with their systems. It's risky, but it might be our only option." As the assessment teams gathered their data, the scale of the challenge became clear. They had limited time, incompatible technology, and 300,000 lives depending on them. Back on the space station, Mark looked at the latest reports. "All right," he announced to his team. "We've got our assessment. Now comes the hard part, finding a way to save these people." The engineers and scientists nodded, determination in their eyes. It wasn't just about saving aliens anymore. This was humanity's chance to prove itself to the galaxy. Kate stared at the hologram of the alien power core, her coffee long forgotten and cold. It was 3 a.m. on the space station, but she couldn't sleep. Not when the solution felt so close, yet so far away. "Play it again," she told the computer. The simulation showed their latest attempt to connect human fusion technology to the alien systems. Like the previous 50 attempts, it ended in failure. The crystal structure of the alien ship cracked under the power surge. "You should rest," said a gentle voice. One of the bright ones, who they now called Guide, floated into the room. His skin glowed softly in the dim light. "I can't," Kate replied, using the new translation device. "We're running out of time. 50 ships to fix, and we can't even solve one." Guide moved closer to the hologram. "Our crystals sing with power," he explained. "Your machines, they shout." Kate sat up straighter. "Say that again." "Our power flows like music. Yours is like thunder." Something clicked in Kate's tired mind. She wasn't looking at an engineering problem. She was looking at a harmony problem. The human fusion reactors were too rough, too direct. They needed to smooth out the power delivery. She ran to wake up Dr. Thompson. 20 minutes later, they were in the lab with a small piece of alien crystal. "If we use lunar helium-3 instead of standard fusion fuel," Kate explained, "the power signature is cleaner. Then we add these buffering systems." They worked through the night, building a small prototype. It wasn't pretty. A mix of human technology and carefully grown crystal fragments. But when they activated it, the crystal didn't crack. Instead, it began to glow with a steady light. Commander Mark found them in the morning, surrounded by tools and empty coffee cups, but grinning like children. "We did it," Kate said. "We found a way to connect our systems to theirs." But her smile faded slightly. "There's a catch." The catch was significant. They needed massive amounts of helium-3 from the moon. They needed to build 50 specialized fusion reactors. And they needed to do it all in less than 3 months. Mark called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major space agency attended via hologram. The cost would be astronomical. Every space-capable nation would need to contribute. The entire world's helium-3 mining operations would need to focus on this, one official said. It would set other projects back by years. "If we do nothing, 300,000 people die," Mark responded. "Is there even a choice?" The vote was unanimous. Operation Power Bridge would begin immediately. On the moon, mining operations switched to round-the-clock schedules. On Earth, factories were retooled to build the specialized equipment. In orbit, construction crews began assembling the first full-scale reactor. Kate led the test team. They would only get one chance to prove the concept would work on a large scale. If they failed, there wouldn't be time to rebuild. The test day arrived too quickly. A small alien shuttle had volunteered for the attempt. If something went wrong, the damage would be contained. Everyone watched from safe distance as the reactor powered up. Kate's voice was steady as she called out readings. Power at 10%, 30%, 50%. The alien crystal began to glow brighter. Guide watched intently, translating the crystal's reactions. "It accepts the song," he said. "The harmony is beautiful." At 75% power, warning alarms blared. The crystal structure was vibrating. Kate's hands flew over the controls, adjusting frequencies, balancing power flows. "We need to shut it down," someone yelled. "No," Kate and Guide said simultaneously. She looked at the readings again. The vibration. It's not destructive. The crystal is resonating. "Guide?" The bright one moved closer to the crystal. "Yes, It's not fighting the power. It's dancing with it. They pushed to full power. The crystal ship's systems came fully online for the first time since the accident. The test was a success. The celebration was brief. They had proven it could work, but now came the real challenge. They needed to scale up the operation 50 times over, build more reactors, train more crews, and do it all before the life support systems failed. As Kate looked at her team's tired but happy faces, she knew they had passed a turning point. They had solved the impossible problem. Now they just had to do it 49 more times. Guy placed a glowing hand on her shoulder. "Your people continue to amaze us," he said. "You find harmony in chaos." "We're too stubborn to accept failure," Kate replied with a smile, "especially when lives are at stake." The real work was just beginning, but now they had hope. Sometimes that was all humans needed. The space around Neptune had never been so busy. Dozens of ships moved between Earth and the stranded alien fleet, carrying equipment and crews. From his command post, Mark watched the constant flow of traffic with growing concern. They were behind schedule. "Status report," he called out to the operations team. 20 ships converted, "Sir," replied Jack, his operations officer. "But we're running into problems with the crystal growth rates." The main screen showed their progress. Green dots represented completed ships, yellow for those in progress, and red for those still waiting. There were too many red dots. Kate's voice crackled over the comm. She was working on one of the larger ships, nicknamed Big Crystal by the crews. "Commander, we got another problem. The life support is failing faster than predicted on ships 7 through 12. Mark's stomach tightened. They had expected this, but not so soon. "How many people at risk?" 30,000, Kate replied. "We need to speed up or evacuate them to the completed ships." The evacuation would slow down their work, but they had no choice. Mark gave the order. "Begin moving people to the stable ships." "Kate, how's Big Crystal coming along?" "Almost there." Guide and his team found a way to speed up the crystal integration. They're teaching other crews now. This was the pattern of their days now, solving one crisis just as another appeared. The human crews worked in shifts, wearing heavy spacesuits in the freezing void. The bright ones helped where they could, their natural understanding of crystal technology proving invaluable. In the makeshift construction yard, fusion reactors were being assembled as fast as the parts arrived from Earth. The Moon's helium-3 mines were operating at maximum capacity, the precious fuel being launched up as soon as it was processed. "Commander," Jack called out suddenly, "Ship 9's readings are critical." On the screen, one of the yellow dots started flashing red. 9,000 refugees were aboard that ship, and its power system was collapsing. "Get me Kate," Mark ordered. "Already on my way," she responded, redirecting Team 3 to Ship 9. Through the station's windows, Mark could see the emergency unfolding. The massive crystal ship was losing its glow, sections going dark one by one. Rescue ships were racing toward it, but they wouldn't be able to evacuate everyone in time. Kate's team reached the ship first. Their small craft looked tiny next to the giant crystal structure. "We're going to try something new," she announced. "Guide says we can tie in the emergency reactor directly." "That's too risky," Mark protested. "The testing alone." "No time for testing," Kate cut in. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before total failure." Mark looked at the data. She was right. They were out of options. Do it. But Kate, be careful. The next 15 minutes were the longest of Mark's life. He watched as Kate's team worked frantically, connecting their portable reactor to the alien ship systems. Guide and 2 other bright ones helped, their glowing forms visible through the ship's crystal walls as they guided the power flows. 10 minutes to critical, Jack announced. Kate's voice was tense. "Almost there. Guide, we need more dampening on the power flow." 5 minutes. The portable reactor hummed to life. Power began flowing into the alien ship systems. For a moment, everything seemed fine. Then alarms blared. Power spike. Someone shouted. The crystal matrix is destabilizing. But Guide's voice cut through the chaos. No. Look, the crystal adapts. He was right. The ship's crystal structure was changing, growing new pathways to handle the emergency power. Slowly, the critical warnings began to fade. The ship's glow stabilized. Life support stabilizing. Jack reported, relief clear in his voice. Power levels rising. They did it. The cheer that went up in the command center was deafening, but Kate's next words brought them back to reality. This was too close. We need to change our approach. She was right. They had saved Ship 9, but they still had 30 more vessels to convert, and they had just lost precious time with the emergency. New plan, Mark announced. We're going to teach the bright ones to do the conversions themselves. Kate, work with Guide to set up training teams. Jack, reorganize the construction schedule. We're not losing any more ships. As the crews returned to work, Mark looked at his schedule. They were still behind, but they had learned something valuable today. Sometimes, the best solution wasn't to work harder, but to work smarter. The race wasn't over, but for the first time, Mark believed they might actually win it. Warning alarms blared throughout the command station. Mark burst into the control room, still pulling on his uniform jacket. What's happening? Solar storm, sir, Jack replied, his face lit by the red emergency lights. A big one. Heading straight for the fleet. The main screen showed the massive wave of radiation approaching from the sun. It was one of the largest solar storms ever recorded, and it was heading straight toward the area where they were trying to save 300,000 lives. Kate's voice crackled over the radio. Commander, the alien ship shields are down, without their main power systems. She didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what a direct hit from a solar storm would do to unprotected ships. How many ships have working shields? Mark demanded. 35 converted so far, Jack reported. The rest are still vulnerable, including Big Crystal with 12,000 children aboard. Guide floated into the control room, his usual gentle glow pulsing with worry. Our crystals cannot withstand such energy without shields. The children. Mark made his decision. Order all Earth ships to form a barrier between the storm and the vulnerable alien ships. We'll use our shields to protect them. Sir, Jack protested, our shields aren't rated for a storm this size. We'll take heavy damage. Better our ships than their children, Mark replied. Send the order. The human fleet moved into position, 20 ships forming a protective wall in space. The converted alien ships helped where they could, their more powerful shields supplementing the barrier. Kate and her engineering team were working on Big Crystal, racing to complete its power conversion before the storm hit. We need another 30 minutes, she reported. You've got 10, Mark replied, watching the storm approach. After that, get your people out. The storm hit like a hammer. Human ships groaned under the impact, their shields glowing bright under the assault. Inside the command center, readings turned red one by one as ships reported shield failures. Hull breach on Rescue 7. Jack called out. They're evacuating. Guide watched in amazement as human crews stayed at their posts, even as their ships started breaking apart. Why do they not flee? Because others need help, Mark said simply. That's what humans do. In the engineering section of Big Crystal, Kate and her team worked frantically. 2 human engineers, Rob and David, were outside the ship, manually aligning the power couplings. The storm's radiation was intense, but they refused to leave their posts. Almost there, Rob reported, his voice weak. Just need to. A massive surge of radiation washed over their position. When it cleared, both engineers were silent. Rob, David? Kate called desperately. No answer. But their work was completed. The power couplings were aligned perfectly. Guide's people found them later, still holding their tools, their suits' radiation badges black from exposure. They had given their lives to save thousands of alien children. The storm raged for 6 hours. When it finally passed, the damage was severe. 5 human ships were lost, though their crews had managed to evacuate. Others would need months of repairs. But among the alien ships, there were no casualties. The human barrier had held just long enough for the most vulnerable ships to raise their shields. In the aftermath, Mark visited the medical bay. Many of his crew were being treated for radiation exposure. Kate sat beside Rob and David's covered forms, her face streaked with tears. They knew the risk, she said quietly. They knew what the radiation would do, but they stayed to finish the job. Guide approached, leading a group of Bright One children. Each carried a small crystal that glowed with a soft light. In their tradition, it was the highest honor they could give to fallen heroes. "We did not understand," Guide said, his voice full of emotion. "We thought humans primitive because they lacked our technology. But we were wrong. True advancement is not measured in technology, but in the heart." The children placed their crystals around Rob and David. The crystals began to pulse in unison, creating a beautiful harmony. "They will be remembered," Guy promised. "Their story will be told in all our worlds." As the crystals sang their memorial song, Mark looked at the status display. They had saved many lives, but paid a heavy price, and they still had 15 ships to convert, with time running out. But now they had something new, the complete trust and cooperation of the Bright Ones. Together, they would find a way to finish the mission. They owed it to Rob and David to succeed. Kate hadn't slept in 2 days, but her mind was racing. She stood in the observation room, surrounded by holographic displays of the remaining alien ships. After the solar storm, something had been bothering her about the way the ship's crystals had reacted to each other. "Guide," she called out, knowing the Bright One was never far. "The memorial crystals for Rob and David. They synchronized their power, right?" Guide appeared, his glow dimmed from exhaustion. "Yes, all crystals can join their songs if properly tuned." Kate's eyes widened. "Show me again." Guide produced a small crystal. As he concentrated, it began to pulse with light. He brought out a second crystal, and soon both pulsed in perfect harmony. "Commander," Kate called Mark on the emergency channel. "I need everyone in the main lab." Now, 20 minutes later, the lab was packed. Engineers, scientists, and Bright Ones crowded around as Kate explained her idea. "We've been trying to power each ship individually," she said, manipulating the hologram. "But what if we connected them all, like a power grid?" She showed the simulation. "The memorial crystals gave me the idea. If we link the reactors we've already installed, we can channel power through the entire fleet at once. Like a string of Christmas lights." Jack asked. "Exactly," Kate said. "But instead of electricity, we're conducting crystal resonance." Mark studied the plan. The power requirements would be enormous. "We have enough helium-3, Kate replied. "And more importantly, we have enough converted ships to start a chain reaction. The powered ships can help convert the others." Guide moved through the hologram, his expression thoughtful. "Yes, the crystal songs could harmonize. But the timing must be perfect. One discord could shatter the entire network." "Then we'll be perfect," Kate said firmly. The next days were a blur of activity. Every available engineer worked to modify the power systems. The Bright Ones taught humans their crystal harmonization techniques. Practice runs were conducted with small groups of ships. They faced countless problems. Power surges blew out equipment. Crystal frequencies refused to align. 2 test ships suffered minor cracks before they found the right balance. But they kept working. Humans and Bright Ones, side by side, solving each problem as it arose. The memory of Rob and David's sacrifice drove them forward. Finally, they were ready. 40 ships were linked in a vast network, their crystals pulsing in harmony. The remaining 10 powerless ships were positioned carefully within the grid. "All ships report ready," Jack announced from his station. Mark looked at Kate. "It's your show, Chief Engineer." Kate took a deep breath. Guide stood beside her at the master control panel. Around them, dozens of engineers monitored their stations. "Beginning power-up sequence," Kate said. "First level harmonics." The grid of ships began to glow. Power flowed from the converted vessels to their powerless neighbors. The crystal resonance built slowly, carefully. 20% power, Jack called out. "Grid is stable." Guide watched the readings intently. The songs merge well. "Continue." They increased power gradually. At each stage, they checked for instabilities. One wrong move could destroy the entire fleet. At 60%, warning lights flashed. "Power fluctuation in Section 7. Someone shouted. Kate's hands flew over the controls. Guide touched the nearest crystal, listening to its song. Together, they adjusted the frequencies, bringing the system back into balance. 80%, Jack reported. All ships showing power flow. The space around them was filled with light as the entire fleet pulsed in unison. The powerless ships began to glow as energy flowed into their systems. "Final stage," Kate announced. "Full power in 3, 2, 1. The crystal network blazed with light. Power surged through the grid, and for a moment, everyone held their breath. Then, one by one, the dead ships came to life. Systems activated. Life support stabilized. Emergency power cores reformed. "All ships report full power," Jack shouted. The room erupted in cheers. Guide's glow brightened with joy. "The song is complete. All ships sing together now." Kate slumped in her chair, exhausted but smiling. She looked at the picture of Rob and David on her console. "We did it," she whispered. Mark put a hand on her shoulder. "Good work, everyone. But we're not done yet. Now we need to make sure it stays working." The celebration was short but heartfelt. There was still work to do, systems to stabilize, and procedures to document. But they had done what seemed impossible. 300,000 lives had been saved, not by superior technology, but by human determination and the willingness of two species to work together. As Kate looked out at the glowing fleet, she knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself to the galaxy in ways no one had expected. 1 month after the successful power grid activation, the fleet orbited Earth. The massive crystal ships created a spectacular light show in the night sky, visible to millions below. In the main conference room of the International Space Station, Mark and Kate sat with Guide and the Bright Ones Council. The mood was different now. No more emergency meetings or crisis management. Today was about the future. "Your people have earned more than our gratitude," the head council member said, his glow pulsing with formal dignity. "You have earned your place among the stars." Mark looked at the document before him. It was a formal invitation for Earth to join the Galactic Alliance, something usually reserved for civilizations with at least a century of faster-than-light travel experience. "We're hardly advanced enough," Mark said. "We don't even have FTL drives." Guide's glow brightened with amusement. "Technology is not everything. You proved that. What use is advanced technology without the heart to use it wisely?" Kate thought about Rob and David, their sacrifice now legendary among both humans and Bright Ones. A memorial had been built for them on the moon, where crystals from all 50 saved ships sang in eternal harmony. "Speaking of technology," the head council member continued, "we offer a trade. Our crystal technology, in exchange for your fusion innovations. Your creative approach to power generation has much to teach us." The exchange would change both civilizations. Human engineers were already learning to grow crystal circuits, while Bright One scientists studied the robust simplicity of human fusion designs. In the station's viewing room, Kate stood with Guide, watching teams of human and Bright One engineers working together on a new project. They were building Earth's first crystal fusion hybrid ship. "It's strange," Kate said. "A month ago, we thought your technology was impossibly advanced. Now we're teaching each other." "That is the true advancement," Guide replied. "Not the technology itself, but the wisdom to share and learn." The new ship would be named Phoenix. carrying both human fusion cores and crystal power systems. It would be the first of many, combining the best of both civilizations. On Earth, changes were already visible. Crystal technology was revolutionizing power generation and computing. Human fusion designs were making Bright One ships more resilient. But the biggest changes were cultural. In universities across Earth, Bright One teachers shared their knowledge while learning human history and art. Human engineers traveled to crystal cities on distant worlds, bringing their unique problem-solving approaches to new challenges. Mark received a new assignment. He would command Phoenix on its maiden voyage, leading a mixed crew of humans and Bright Ones. Kate would be his chief engineer, with Guide as the crystal systems expert. The day before the fleet's departure, they held a ceremony. Thousands watched in person and billions more through broadcasts as the Bright One Council formally recognized Earth's role in the rescue. In our long history, the head council member announced, "We have never encountered a species that did so much with so little. You turned your technological limitations into strengths. You showed us that the measure of advancement lies not in the tools one has, but in the spirit with which they are used." The ceremony ended with a symbolic gesture. Each of the 50 saved ships grew a small crystal monument, which would be placed in major cities across Earth. The crystals would sing their story for generations to come. As the fleet prepared to depart, Kate made one final visit to the Moon Memorial. The crystals still sang their harmony, now joined by a new note, the deep hum of human fusion technology. "We did good, didn't we?" she said to the memorial, thinking of Rob and David. Guide stood beside her. They made possible everything that followed. Their song will never end. From orbit, Mark watched the fleet power up for departure. The crystal ships glowed brighter, their human-designed fusion cores adding strength to their ancient systems. It was beautiful, this blend of old and new, of human determination and alien wisdom. "Phoenix reports ready," Jack announced from his new position as first officer. Mark looked at his crew, humans and Bright Ones working side by side. Beyond Earth's orbit, the galaxy waited with new challenges and opportunities. "Take us out," he ordered. "We've got a lot more to learn." As Phoenix moved forward, its crystal hull pulsing with fusion-powered light, it carried more than a crew. It carried the proof that sometimes the greatest advances come not from technology, but from the simple willingness to help others in need. The story of the Great Rescue would be told many times, on many worlds, but its lesson remained simple. In the vast darkness of space, the brightest light comes from working together.